Good morning, Eastside Explorers, and once again, it's time for our fish cast drawing for books. Remember, if your name gets called, come on down to the office and get a certificate that you can use for a free book in the bookstore on Wednesdays during lunch. First graders, we're going to start with you, as we always do. From Mrs. Adams' class, Zayden Brantley. Mrs. Adams' class again, Porter Simonson. Mrs. Skelding's class, Samantha Monroy. And our last first grader for this week is from Mrs. Shuck's class, and it's Riley Hinkle. Come on down and get a certificate. Our first second grader is from Mrs. Miller's class, Sean Stewart. From Mrs. Miller's class again, Jalen Jackson. From Miss Bennett's class, Caleb Johnson. And our last winner for this week from second grade is from Miss Bennett's class again, and it is Xander Weil. Come on down and get a certificate. Third grade, from Mrs. Sanders' class, Aaron Baugh. Mrs. Stanley's class, Reeve Gerald. From Mrs. Shaw's class, Derek Kelly. And our last third grader for this week is from Mrs. Sanders' class again, and it's Josh Wilkes. Come on down and get a certificate. Fourth grade, from Mrs. Payton's class, Kirsten Waymeyer. Mrs. Payton's class again, Robert Stone. Let's see, I think you're Mrs. Payton's class again, I believe. Deacon Tolston. Come on down and get a certificate. And our last winner is from Mrs. Biggis's class, Matthew Osbach. Come on down and get her certificate. Our first fifth grader is another Tolston from Miss Plummer's class, Zabriel Tolston. Come on down and get a certificate. From Mrs. Fulton's class, Liza Reese. From Mrs. Lavelle's class, Erica Cruz. And our last winner for this week, from Mrs. Lavelle's class again, it is Trinity Peevler. Come on down and get a certificate. And once again, Eastside Explorers, thank you for being proud, positive, and productive.